I really thought that said bigger boobies. My glue brain needs to be put down. Today is the first day that I am going to be recording a video for YouTube that is not live. I'm just sitting here talking to myself. I think that makes me a professional YouTuber. Today we are going to be watching the complete lore of Poppy Playtime. So I was following Poppy Playtime for a very long time. I know I remember the first chapter and the second chapter very, very well, but I think they slowed down production because they were trying to focus on other things at the same time. I completely lost interest because I kind of forgot what was happening. So I have not kept up to date with Poppy Playtime lore like at all. So this is actually going to be very interesting to me. You guys are going to be here to experience me falling in love with Huggy Wuggy. Okay, maybe not. Maybe a little bit.
What do you need to know before Poppy Playtime Chapter 4? It's been a whole year since the previous chapter, and in the meantime, Mob has done what they do best, giving out more lore than you can shake a mechanical arm at. But don't worry, loyal theorists, because I have played the spin-offs, I watched every trailer, I even read the book. Also, you don't have to. Here is everything you need to know about the Poppy Playtime line. Hello Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, the show that's ready to take its relationship with Poppy to the next level. We got nothing. No new character, no new trailer, not even a release date. That's right, just like Scott was releasing games so fast Matt couldn't keep up, not 5 minutes before our recent theory dropped, Mob Entertainment released a new trailer with a new character and a release date. 5 minutes? Are you kidding me? I'm convinced Poppy wasn't brought to life for lore reasons. It was to troll me for all eternity.
That's always what happens, right? I figured it out. I figured out the lore for FNAF. I figured out the lore for Poppy Playtime. We're actually going to release the game. It's gonna completely nullify your theory. None of it makes sense anymore. This video is a year old. It might not be accurate anymore, but I'm gonna watch it anyway.
Be surprised if they did the same thing to us this week. Regardless, because of Mob's ridiculous and seemingly never-ending amount of content leading up to Chapter 4's release, it can be a little tricky to keep up with everything. We've had a book, 2 ARGs, a Roblox spin-off, and over a dozen teasers and videos. But if you're someone that's only played the games, or you just haven't subscribed to the channel yet, then there's been a whole year worth of story that you would have no—
Why is low-key Huggy Wuggy kind of have like man boobs? Why did they give Huggy Wuggy man boobs? No, we're body shaming Huggy Wuggy.
idea about going into Chapter 4. So today, I'm going to give you all a hand and fill you in from the beginning with all the important names, dates, and lore Mob has given us, as well as a few theories of our own for good measure, all in one cohesive timeline. Now, this is a big task, so instead of doing this like our usual theories, I wanted to try treating this like our FNAF timeline. It's more story-focused, with references in the bottom corner showing thumbnails, books, titles, basically any citations that I'll be pulling from. I've also got this nifty little traffic light symbol in the top corner to clear things up. Green means what I'm saying are facts that we have physical evidence for, amber means what I'm saying is theory, but it's supported by evidence, and red means it's speculation that makes sense for the story, but we don't have a lot of evidence for. So, keep a close eye on your screens, theorists. It's time to analyze the history of this forgotten factory. Just be careful that the screen doesn't stare back. Playtime Co. was founded in the good old US of A in 1930. Quickly, it became one of the most well-renowned toy companies in the world, priding itself in making toys locally instead of overseas like its competitor Mattel. Yes, that Mattel, the ones who made Barbie.
I know exactly where you're going with this, and I have to say, I really resent it.
All of this success was thanks to one man, the founder of Playtime Co., Elliot Ludwig. All he wanted was to bring joy to children. But sadly, that noble goal meant that he spent all of his—
If I've learned anything from games, is that you don't trust anyone with the name Ludwig. Every single game that has a character with Ludwig in the name, never a good person. I don't think I've come across a single one. Prove me wrong.
Time at work, neglecting his own family, and his wife had had enough, divorcing him that same year. Nevertheless, Elliot pushed forward, though for 2 decades, he struggled to figure out the key to innovating the toy-making world, until finally he hit a breakthrough. In 1950, Elliot created a toy that would change the world forever. Poppy Playtime.
A little girl
The
can
Rose
talk to her,
toy.
Poppy gives her answers. She is the first doll actually able to have a conversation with a child.
Not only that, but her hair also smelled like poppies, which had been used throughout history to help children fall asleep, making her an instant hit with the parents. How did Elliot achieve this?
I can't wait to knock my kid out with this doll. If she doesn't fall asleep after she smells the doll's hair, I'm gonna grab the doll by its little pigtails, swing it around, and knock my kid out with it.
Incredible feats? Well, because Poppy wasn't just a plastic toy. Elliot used organic parts to make her, allowing Poppy to really seem alive. He just needed to add a quick no refund policy to anyone who tried to fix the Poppy doll themselves, just to keep it under wraps. Thankfully, no one ever discovers this.
I don't think that we care about refunds. I think we care about it being a terrible person thing to do if we find organic material in our children's toys. I don't think we're worried about refunds. Maybe that's just me. I find blood in my child's toy. Oh, shit. I can't get a refund.
Parts to make her, allowing Poppy to really seem alive. He just needed to add a quick no refund policy to anyone who tried to fix the Poppy doll themselves, just to keep it under wraps. Thankfully, no one ever discovers this little secret of Elliot's. But Poppy sales alone can't keep the toy company afloat. So they release a handful of new toys like Bron the Dinosaur in 1961 or Boxy Boo in 1966, though none of them really compare to Poppy in terms of popularity. But then, out of nowhere, tragedy struck. Since day one, Elliot had been encouraging his employees to adopt, to bring joy to children who had none of their own. And he lived by example, adopting a daughter of his own. Finally, the family that the family man had always wanted, until she passed away before his very eyes. There was nothing he could do to save her. All Elliot could do was take the biological knowledge he had.
I'm sorry. It just looks so funny. It's just like her fading off at a distance, like, I don't feel too good. And he's like, oh.
And turn her into another organic Poppy doll, just so he could keep a part of her with him forever, so part of her could live on. Little did he know how successful that experiment would be. Somehow, his daughter's mind managed to survive the process. Naturally, Elliot is shocked by this. His daughter is back, living on inside this doll that he made. He couldn't let her fall out of his grasp again, so he builds a family home inside the factory storage bay and locks her inside a glass case to keep her safe. He even adds a passage leading directly to his office so he can visit her whenever he or she wants. With his family now returned to him, his passion to strive for innovation was restored.
But with so much ambition, he rose back up and continued to fulfill his vision for the Playtime Co. toy factory.
The first thing he needed was more people like him. Smart, capable people that could help him continue to innovate and answer the toughest questions the world had to offer. Like, say, how was a child able to live on inside a doll, perhaps? But older minds are harder to shape. He needed people who still had some of that childlike wonder, and thus the Young Geniuses program was born. Elliot sent out flyers and posters similar to that of the time period, trying to gather young minds together to turn them into the scientists of the future, stamped with the logo he'd been using for Playtime since the early days. This attracted many young and bright individuals, including a brilliant, albeit slightly cold young man named Harley Sawyer. Harley was a peculiar character. He didn't care for his comrades, he hardly smiled, but one thing he clearly loved was science, and Elliot took a liking to this strange boy. He may not have been normal, but neither was Elliot. He saw part of himself in Harley. This was the kind of kid he could take
I see that you're kind of stupid. You remind me of myself.
under his wing, mold into someone who could really shape the future and maybe even catapult Playtime into the stratosphere of success. Unfortunately, that didn't quite work out. Harley never lost his distaste for others, and while he continued to pursue innovation, he was just doing so to push the boundaries of what could be done, not to help humanity like Elliot envisioned. That being said, Elliot didn't give up. He kept trying to change Harley's point of view, but no matter how hard he tried, it was no use. Harley could would not change. Not here anyway. And so Elliot makes the hard decision to kick Harley out of the program, sending him
You're not gonna fall victim to my wiggly hands? Well, here's a piece of paper that says that you suck.
home to the outside world to be around more people, hoping it will help him to understand why they do what they do. Harley was destroyed by this news. His hero, Elliot Ludwig, was abandoning him. All he could see Elliot as was soft, pathetic, and short-sighted, backstabbing him because he was too much of a genius for Elliot to understand. Though it didn't matter now. He had to do what he was told, and so Harley left the program, disappearing from the halls of Playtime Co. At least for now. Foreshadowing. As the years go by, more and more, Elliot feels like it's not really enough to just encourage his employees to adopt. There are still so many children that need a home, much like his own daughter did. And while the Young Geniuses program was good by taking on young people so late in their childhoods, even they were already stuck in their ways like Harley was. So, in 1976, Elliot announces a new program, Playcare, Playtime's own on-site orphanage, where he can continue to bring joy to children and educate them in the ways they should go, creating a mass of young, brilliant minds that could help lead the world to prosperity. But while all those programs sound good on paper, and they were well received by the public, they were beginning to cost Elliot a lot of money. Poppy was the last big financial success, and that was over 2 decades ago. But he can't keep innovating in the toy world and run these programs on his own.
I think it's just time to call it quits, I'm not gonna lie. If you haven't made a successful product in years, it might be time to call it quits. I don't think businessing is for you. Only this doll that knocks children out has made me money. I think that you might want to look into being a drug dealer.
He would need more staff. So he hires people like Stella Graber to run the Playcare, Leith Pierre as head of innovation, Eddie M.N. Ritterman as the head of research, and Jimmy Roth as the chief marketing officer. Their first assignment? Figure out how to stop the company from feeling, quote, old-fashioned. With all their powers combined, they try to get the company back on top, starting with the release of brand new toys like Candy Cat in 1979.
Candy Cat, so cute.
They continue to release toys into the next decade. They try Swapimals that you could mix and match like Cappy and PJ Pugapilla. They also try Kick Me Paul for some reason, but nothing could quite match the success of Elliot's original Poppy. That was until 1984, when Elliot had another idea. He went to the team, and shortly after, he releases the Blue Boy himself, Huggy Wuggy.
Wow, instead of making you fall asleep, this one's gonna teach you how to do brain surgery. So you can operate brain surgery on all of your friends. Whee!
Things were looking up. Huggy is such a big hit with the kids, it basically becomes the face of the brand. In the eyes of the public, Poppy was a long-forgotten memory. Long live Huggy! Of course, he has to capitalize off of this success by releasing Huggy's pink counterpart, Kissy Missy, 1 year later. She too is a huge success, just not as big as Huggy, obviously. Playtime Co. is on top of the world at this point. It's almost like they can do no wrong. But sadly, over the next half of the decade, their profits once again decrease. Sure, Huggy was successful, but just like Poppy before, you can't sustain an entire company off of a single toy, even if he has a cute pink girlfriend. They needed something new, and one of them had an idea. What if you create a bunch of toys as part of a set? That way, kids aren't buying just one toy, but several. Enter the Smiling Critters in 1989. Similar to Care Bears or Cabbage Patch Kids, these are small, cuddly toys with big personality.
You know, just like the most terrifying nightmare fuel design ever. Kids will love it, just like the Furby.
But each one is unique, and so you would need to collect them all for the full experience.
Gotcha!
This was the perfect way to increase the dropping sales numbers Playtime was facing. Plus, to really capture the same appeal as Poppy and her poppy-scented hair, these critters would each come with their own unique scents, all with calming effects. Crafty Corn smells like jasmine, Bobby Bear Hug like rose. But would calming be enough? Poppy's hair literally put children to sleep. That's what made her such a hit with the parents in the 50s. They needed these smiling critters to do the same. So they get to work developing one more smiling critter.
Fentanyl! The fentanyl critter!
One with the advertised scent of lavender, a scent associated with sleep, but instead of actually using lavender, they would create a poppy gas that would actively put kids to sleep, just like Poppy did. They put the smoke inside the purple cat and gave him a name that tied into his sleepy powers, Catnap. And just to be on the safe side, Playtime Co. also commissioned...
Imagine being known as the company that just, like, knocks kids out. I feel like that should be a warning.
the creation of a Saturday morning cartoon featuring this new cast of characters, all begging Catnap to help them fall to sleep with his red smoke, showing kids and parents alike that this is just what the toy is meant to do. Initially, everything is going according to plan. Sales for this new line of toys are great. They are flying off the shelves. Both parents and kids really seem to love these new adorable critters, except for Catnap. After a few weeks, doctors began reporting a rise in children suffering from intense nightmares that all started after they received their Catnap toys. In Playtime's desperation to mimic the sleep-inducing effects that Poppy had, they'd accidentally concocted something that, yes, put children to sleep, but also gave children horrible nightmares. Thankfully for Leith and the team, no connection was ever proven, but they still needed to save face. They recalled all of the Catnap toys, and Catnap was removed from the Smiling Critters lineup entirely.
Thank God.
The Smiling Critters disaster put Playtime Co. in a bad spot. If they were going to survive the next decade, something needed to be done, and fast. And so, Leith Pierre put his head of innovation status to good use and came up with an unusual but effective plan. He hired a private investigator, Jared Lockhart, to track down former members of the Young Geniuses program that Elliot had started decades ago. These people trained under Elliot. They were geniuses from a young age, and most of them had quite impressive careers. If anyone was going to be able to come up with an idea to save this company, it would be one of them. Sometime later, Jared arrives with the list, and when it lands on Leith's desk, there is one option that immediately catches his eye: Harley Sawyer.
Oh, boys!
Yeah. That's such a nice name.
This guy was now certified by the American Board of Neurological Surgery. He was, by all accounts, a genius. And with Elliot using biological parts to make Poppy, a surgeon felt like the perfect fit. Leith presents this idea to Elliot for final approval. And while Elliot is hesitant at first, he does remember that Harley was the brightest of the bunch back in the day. And maybe all these years away have taught him the lessons he was hoping.
He's terrifying. Don't trust Harley. Harley's gonna molest you in your sleep.
Do it. With that approval, Leith reaches out to Harley on January 15th, 1990, giving him an offer to come and join Playtime Co. once again. And strangely, despite the hurt Elliot caused him all those years ago, for some reason, Harley accepts the offer. Immediately, he begins showing the level of promise they were hoping for from this recruit. He sees the problems at Playtime Co., the public outcry, the declining profits, and he came up with an idea that would fix everything.
Giant toys. We can
that's the
increase
best.
our workforce and simultaneously decrease the number of lawsuits and people on our payroll if the people we have working aren't people. Put me in charge of it, and I will save this company.
Leith makes Harley head of special projects, and together they begin hiring other scientists to help with the
Do we have no safety precautions put in? If we're like getting continuous lawsuits from our employees to the point where we need to make non-human employees, I think we need to take a step back and realize that we are the problem. I believe that we are the issue here. If all of our employees are leaving because they're getting hurt or dying.
Development of the Bigger Bodies Initiative. Some of them are fellow Young Genius alumni like Dr. Bruno White and Dr. Carmine McKay, but others are just young and eager biologists looking for their first big break, like the owner of the orientation notebook, PW. From here, the company begins their experiments.
PW.
Harley takes the new scientists to observe and study the Poppy doll that he remembered being in the storage bay from his days in the Young Geniuses program. He told them to use her as the blueprint to bring toys to life.
I am the cause. Being able to exist as a doll, it has killed so many people.
Everyone works diligently to try and recreate the magic of this one Poppy doll. But
No,
after
not the rat.
814 experiments, it's clear that things aren't working with simple rats. They need to try something bigger. They need to repeat what Elliot
Giant
did.
rats.
They need to use children. Harley
Why is that our next step? Yeah, dude, the rats aren't working. So you know, like, the next step? Living children. Oh, sir, I don't think that's we're gonna use children.
delivers the note to Elliot as one of his many updates on the program. But once again, Elliot is torn. Up until this point, these experiments weren't really all that bad. It was just a few hundred rats that suffered the consequences. But now, he had a choice to make. He'd spent his life trying to bring joy to children, to give them a home, somewhere they could grow and overcome the odds. Harley still couldn't believe this soft old man. What is more important to you, these children or the business you've spent decades building, which people rely on for their own families? Mortality is just a curse on humanity anyway. If we can figure this out, all these orphans who had suffered would never grow old or sick. They could live forever and keep bringing joy to other children for centuries to come. It was not an easy decision, but this argument from Harley does sway Elliot. With that permission in hand, the senior staff of Playtime Co. set about
We'll just murder a bunch so that a few in the future can be fine. Good idea.
building the game station, a facility designed to test the orphans' physical and mental abilities, pairing them with a specific toy, and if they were deemed ready, taken away for conversion.
They'd come for games and never come back.
As part of this process, they utilized the red smoke that they made for the catnap toy. Where previously Poppy gels had failed, gas is a much more effective way of getting the mystical powers of the poppy flower that helped bring Poppy to life into the bodies of these orphans. They installed shower heads throughout the playcare to distribute the gas, but it wasn't the most effective solution. Kids could see them and what they were doing. They became wary of going to bed. An alternate solution would need to be found. However, they had other problems to deal with. Over the last few years, there had been one employee that had been causing Playtime Co. a lot of trouble. They weren't ruining their plans as such, they were just a bit of an administrative headache. That man was Rich Lovitz. Initially, he was working in the storage room and he seemed to be on board with the general Playtime mission, appreciating the good this company did for the orphans. Sadly though, Rich had a habit of losing his temper with management, and so he was demoted to the rejected toy room, which, as you might imagine, he took really well.
After years of being ignored, the company actually heard all my complaints. I guess my words must have really inspired them to take action, because the next day I got demoted down here, to the freaking island of misfit toys!
Damn.
Of course, Playtime Co. had to demote him again, putting him to work in construction in the caves beneath the factory. Down here, in relative solitude, he was able to recognize his shortcomings and, with the help of his new supervisor, began to improve, even to the point of getting promoted. At first, this seemed great for Playtime Co. A reformed employee. The system worked. That was until Rich continued being promoted and began learning what was really going on with the orphans. He cared for these kids. That was the one good thing he had going for him from the beginning, and so he begins flying off the handle once again. The problem was now he knew too much. He could actually cause a problem for Playtime Co. if he went to the authorities. They couldn't just fire him anymore. They needed to get rid of him. And
the only option we have is pull out the AK, unload a full clip into his back.
Well underway, as well as Harley's requests for bigger subjects, they had an idea. They took Rich and used him as a guinea pig, turning him into the first semi-successful experiment, 1006, which they dubbed the prototype. Not a toy as such, more a mix of mechanical and biological parts. It lacked the ability to speak, but was able to mimic voices of others to communicate. Playtime Co. was finally seeing success and removing a problem at the same time. But Rich, now 1006, wouldn't forget what had been done to him, nor what they were doing to the orphans.
I mean,
he just needed to bide his time.
I don't know
and
why
wait
we
for
would.
the right moment.
I don't know why we would make the guy who's just obviously very angry at us into a toy that's supposed to obey us. I feel like the scientists, I feel like their brains aren't working that well.
To strike. Playtime Co. continued their development development of the bigger bodies, but they struggled to find the success they'd had with 1006, usually unable to reactivate their brains after surgery. That is when Harley decided to try something different. He decided to make the bigger body physically bigger, rather than just trying to match the size of the test subject. It flew in the face of all logic, but he needed to try something, and the crazy part is, it worked. They created Experiment 1160, Boxy Boo, and this discovery opened up a new world of possibilities for the future. At this point, several orphans are showing promise in the game station, although there was one that caught Harley's attention specifically, Quinn Navidson. He was a pretty average kid, except he had a strange obsession with removing the heads off of all of his toys. However, Harley didn't see this disposition as a weakness. It was something he could take advantage of, manipulate to get his scores higher and make him a more successful bigger body down the road. Harley spends some one-on-one time with Quinn, convincing him that he understands Quinn better than most, and asking him to just simply apply himself at the next assessment. And next time, Quinn's scores did improve in most areas, although his intelligence seemed to wane a bit, but not enough to stop the inevitable. In August 1990, Quinn became Experiment 1.
We just said that you did what we want. You got no brains though.
1166, Yarnaby. He was strong, agile, swift, but his intelligence still wasn't where Harley wanted it. He saw him more like a dog, which, while not ideal, could be useful for protection. The more bigger bodies they made, the more things there were that could kill him and stop his progress. So Harley isolated Yarnaby, making Yarnaby loyal only to him. Around that same time, another orphan named Theodore Granville began causing some mischief in the playcare, breaking into rooms, stealing files, even stealing a grab pack. When questioned about it, he just said it was his friend that told him to do those things. The staff just assume this friend is of the imaginary persuasion, but in reality, it was very real. 1006 had found a way out of containment and was using Theo to help them escape. Once it had all the information, 1006 and Theo made a break for it. Though, due to Theo's inexperience, he accidentally overcharges the electrified grab pack hand and electrocutes himself. At this moment, 1006 has a choice. Gain the freedom it wants or save Theo. It chooses the latter. It gives Theo over to the Playtime Co scientists and turns itself in to be locked away once again. Now, there is only one way the scientists are able to save Theo, and on November 11th, 1990, the bigger body Catnap was born. Experiment 1188. He was put into the playcare because he was able to release the red gas just like the toy, and the kids would, hopefully, be much less suspicious of this big friendly toy than a typical showerhead. Again,
yeah, he's very friendly. I definitely wouldn't have continuous nightmares about this thing if it came up to me with those beady eyes and that huge smile and just red gas came out of it. You know, I'd be like, this is great. I'm having a good time.
Playtime Co was killing two birds with one stone. The Bigger Bodies initiative was now in full swing. Between Catnap and Yarnaby, Huggy was created, and in 1991, he was put to work as Playtime Co's new security measure, though his wandering eyes were noticed by an employee who wasn't supposed to know anything. Rowan Stoll. Rowan wanted to get to the bottom of what was going on, and over the course of a few months, began to figure out exactly what Playtime Co was doing. When he threatened to leak what he'd found to the public, Harley put his Bigger Bodies to good use.
Now, we need to start tailoring that appetite of yours to flesh. Get me an update on the situation.
That same year, another orphan, Marie Payne, began suffering from unwakeable nightmares thanks to Catnap's gas, leading to the latest experiment we know of to date. Experiment 1222, Mummy
The Queen.
Longlegs. She was violent towards the staff, but kind towards the kids, making her the perfect guardian for the game station. And by May of 1992, the game station is in its heyday. Everything is working as planned. But
I really thought that said bigger boobies. My Gooner brain needs to be put down.
one person is still causing problems. Elliot Ludwig had put a picture up in his office that one of the kids had given him of the game station and Mummy Longlegs. But when he sat there and looked at it, those decisions that had led to this point, they began to weigh heavy on his shoulders. He still felt that Harley's pursuit of innovation for the sake of it wasn't right, but the rest of the senior team seemed to be all for him, and it was hard to deny that the company was seeing success. Regardless, he knew he needed to put some kind of safety measure in place, something to keep Harley in check. just in case his worst fears came true. So he promoted one of the fellow scientists and Young Geniuses graduate, Dr. Bruno White, to become Harley's superior. Once Harley found out, he could think of this as nothing more than another betrayal from Elliot. And this time, he'd had enough. Elliot was too soft to keep things moving forward. He needed to be got rid of, just like every other problem employee they'd faced. One day, both the staff and the public were informed that Elliot Ludwig had passed away. But Harley Sawyer was the only one who knew the truth about what happened. Thanks to Dr. White's promotion, Harley's involvement in things slowly became less and less, leading Harley to become more and more frustrated and driving him more and more insane, until one day he decided to take matters into his own hands. During a guided tour of the factory in 1993, fires break out in the theatre, causing casualties all across the facility. Obviously, Leith Pierre is furious. Now he has to clean up the mess, taking care of any potential witnesses. This is not the kind of publicity Playtime needed. He brings back their private investigator Jared to figure out who is to blame, and true to his word, he gets them an answer.
Dr. Harley Sawyer.
After spouting rhetoric about one bad day and being betrayed by Elliot all of those years ago, Harley had finally gone full Joker and set the theatre ablaze, baptizing everyone in the flames that he was working so hard to save them all from with his Bigger Bodies initiative. As Leith had suggested, Harley needed to be punished, but he can't justify the usual methods. Harley is an undeniable genius, and it would be a shame to lose such a brilliant mind when they definitely still needed him. The Bigger Bodies, while alive, were temperamental and hard to control. They needed to keep perfecting the process. This also meant turning Harley into a bigger body wasn't an option either, as he too would likely lose his mind. And that was when it hit them. Instead of turning Harley into a bigger body, why not turn Harley into a digital consciousness? They could focus all their attention on keeping his mind alive without the need for a working body. That way, Harley could still help them and guide the scientific process, but he couldn't physically cause any problems.
You know, we can just use his brain for what we need to, but he can't set the place on fire.
It was perfect. By 1994, this plan is underway. The party line is that Harley is just out, maybe on a sabbatical or something. And in 1995, the new Playtime automated companion is up and running, ready to meet with scientists like PW. The system would end up...
Why did we give him legs and it looks like he has arms as well if he can't use them? Couldn't he just be the TV head?
Being shut down after May of that year, but regardless, it was another success for Playtime Co. However, as we've seen time and time again, pride cometh before the fall. And this next fall would be the biggest Playtime had ever seen. Behind the scenes, while Playtime Co. had been dealing with Harley, 1006 had been plotting. They'd been gathering all the toys together and promising them the thing they all wanted: freedom. They formulated a plan to take back the factory from Playtime and kill all those who'd helped turn them into monsters. They called it the Hour of Joy, and on August 8th, 1995, they executed that plan. They attack everyone: scientists, tour guides, construction workers. It didn't matter. They were all responsible. They all needed to die. The toys drag the bodies into the depths and slowly consume them to satiate their hunger. Only a small few managed to escape the carnage, Leith Pierre being one of them. Despite the insane loss the company was facing, he kept insisting Playtime Co. continue their work. He began recruitment efforts for a resource extraction team, people that would go back into Playtime Co. and collect the parts they needed to keep making bigger bodies. But eventually, the rising pressure from the public over the mysterious disappearance of the staff, their friends and family, was too much for even Leith to handle, and he shut down the factory for good. Nearly a decade passed, and the Playtime Co. factory, as well as all that happened there, had largely been forgotten. The world had simply moved on. But in 2002, deep in the bowels of the factory, something or someone was coming back online. Harley had awoken from his mysterious slumber. Ironically, just as he'd always stated, his conversion had actually saved him from death. Unlike his former colleagues, he realized the opportunity he had. There was no one left to stop him. His plans could continue, he could save the rest of humanity from their mortal coil and convert them all into living, eternal toys. So he began hacking into the rest of Playtime Co.'s systems, taking control of all communications that were coming in and out of the factory. His plan would come to fruition.
It's like, but why? It doesn't make any sense. Just like, I just want to make everyone into toys. Why? Why do you want to do that? Because I can, and I'm weirdly obsessed with making people into toys, and no one will be able to die with this, but like, we don't really want that. Well, that sucks. That's what's gonna happen.
At the same time, the bigger bodies also remained in the factory, waiting for the prototype to save them as promised, but food supplies were running short. Some of them began to lose their faith that salvation would ever come. Dog Day was one such toy, and 1006 quickly made an example of him. This type of threat, however, wouldn't work forever, and 1006 knew that. It needed to make progress. It was still trying to create its perfect body, but it just didn't have the know-how. Rich was just a simple construction worker. Sure, he could do some cool things with tech, but biology was a whole other ballgame. It needed help. So in 2005, it writes a note saying that the employees that went missing were actually still in the factory, waiting to be rescued. And it sends it to the only person that's not only around to hear it, but would actually care enough to make the trip. The player character, PW. PW didn't show up for work on August 8th, 1995. They were still alive, and more importantly, they actually cared about their fellow employees. If there was a chance their colleagues were still around, they needed to help them. Now, as a former employee, they knew their way around the factory. They knew where this flower was that they'd been pointed to. They just had to get there, while also trying to avoid an unpleasant reunion with one of the many bigger bodies they'd helped create. Huggy Wuggy. PW finds Poppy behind the flower, in the same room she always was, although there are now messages around the room warning them not to trust her. Regardless, once they open the case, Poppy agrees to help PW escape. See, she's not that bad at all. Only Mummy then shows up and kidnaps Poppy.
No!
After beating all of Mummy's games, PW returns to Poppy and takes her to the train, only for Poppy to now change her mind and stop PW from leaving.
I'm sorry, I can't let you leave.
They really should have trusted the signs. The train crashes in front of the playcare, and with some surprising help from Poppy, Kissy Missy, and their ally Ollie, who may or may not be the prototype mimicking a child's voice to trick us, PW makes their way through the playcare. Together, they defeat Catnap and begin the long trip down into Playtime's prison. But Kissy doesn't make the trip. She is killed by something on their way down. And all of this time, Harley has been watching through the security cameras, making his way down to the prison just a bit ahead of them to reunite with Yarnaby and lay whatever traps he has in store for us down in the depths, along with the nightmare critters, Pianosaurus, and a toy made from Play-Doh, Doughy the Dough Man. And that, loyal theorists, is the entire timeline of Poppy Playtime so far. Boy, this franchise is getting big. This is probably the last time I'll be able to do an entire timeline in one video. I mean, look at that runtime. Though, I have to say it is refreshing that outside of a few bits of connective tissue, most of what we've talked about today are either things Mob has told us directly, or we have a lot of evidence to support. The only real details that are super speculative are things like when the Young Geniuses program started, or why Elliot agreed to start using children in the experiments. We said that the Young Geniuses program started in the 60s, but it could very well be the 50s based on the logo. Maybe they were even the ones that helped make the first Poppy dolls. But so long as Harley joins the company early, leaves, and then comes back to cause a bunch of problems, it doesn't really matter which decade it takes place. The same thing goes for Elliot's change of heart towards the author.
Part of me, hates that they're trying to, recreate the MatPat stuff with, this little PNG, with the eyes and with the, making him happy and stuff. They're trying to, recreate MatPat than just trying to make something different. It kind of feels uncanny and strange, and it sits weirdly in my heart. I don't know. It's it sounds dramatic, but it sits weird, and I'm not a big fan of it.
We've got no evidence saying why he made the decisions he did. We may discover his reasoning in the future. It's just not going to change the order of events because we have set dates of when things have to happen. But there you have it, friends. Everything you could possibly need to know going into Chapter 4. And I don't know about you, but now I'm even more excited to see where all this goes. Who will our allies be? What is Harley's big plan? Will I have to rethink the identity of the prototype for a third time? I'm sure all will be revealed in a few few weeks. In the meantime, remember, that's just a theory. A game theory!
I do think the concepts are cool. Poppy Playtime unironically has some of like the coolest designs. I love Huggy Wuggy's design. Poppy's design is pretty cool. It's okay. I love the designs of PJ Pugapillar. He's super cute. I think it was Yarnaby. Those designs are super cool, and I think that they can be creepy but also cute. The little critters, I forgot what they're called. That's like the only design where I just genuinely couldn't see it as like an actual toy, and they're just terrifying to at least to children. As for like the actual lore itself, I don't know, depending on how accurate this is, because I know more games have come out since the 3rd chapter now. I don't know, because it just seems like stupidity, because with other mascot horror, it's just negligence, and it's just pure evil. Like with William Afton, like he just wants to keep doing it because he just wants to kill more children, more or less. But with this one, it just seems like it's just really stupid people in position of power, people that just want to keep something going even though it doesn't need to keep going, and they weren't even like the reason that it started, because Ludwig is dead. At least with William Afton, it makes sense as to why, because that's his business. Like, he wants it to keep going because that's his livelihood. But for other people to care if the business continues, it just doesn't make much sense to me. Maybe it'll make more sense if I watch another one, or current lore explanation of it. Maybe it makes more sense because they changed some things. But with just this video, it just kind of seems like we're just like forcing the puzzle pieces together. Not the theory itself is forcing the puzzle pieces together. The actual story that they're trying to convey through Poppy Playtime seems like they're trying to force the puzzle pieces together. I think part of the reason why people hated on Poppy Playtime so much at the beginning, whenever it was first created, is because it 100% was just trying to make money, and now they're actually trying to build a story around it because it actually did well. So I don't know. It is good, but like not in like the sense of it's like legitimately like a good, well thought story. It's just good because it has the production to be good. But the theory itself is good. I think they did a good job with putting pieces together and laying it out in a way that makes sense. I really like the stoplight thing that they added, so it makes it so people don't take every single thing that they say as fact. So I do like that. I do like that they did that. I do want to say that if there is any videos that you want me to react to, write it down in the comments below.